Welcome, everyone, to a special Draft on Tap episode. The draft is over, and it was a kind of a surreal experience, right? We started the day with 3 picks and end up with 8. Ryan Poe certainly got his trading skills in order and accumulated a lot of picks. Perhaps most of them, or maybe all of them, are going to be practice squad players. We'll see what the guys have to say. We'll introduce them now. There's Danny Shimon. And there is Niel Stopczynski. How are you, fellas?
Good. The marathon's over. It's finally done. It's like one of those, moments where you shed a little tear because all the hard work you put in, but also you kind of let out a big sigh of relief. You're like, all right, now we can take a little bit of a break here. Stop breaking down film. But it's a little bit of a hit or miss for me in terms of what the Bears did. But we'll get into that soon here.
Yeah, Neil was sort of telling me the same thing before you jumped on, Danny. Neil, your thoughts?
Yeah, a little hit or miss. I'm kind of up and down with what happened on day 3 here. I love the fact that Poles went ahead and worked his magic and got us a ton of picks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on day 3. Ended up getting 11 overall. I love what we did yesterday. Kind of like what we did today. There's certain spots where I feel like we got a little bit of a steal in the area with which we brought them in. But outside of that, at this point, there's draft rooms across America where everybody's basically just kind of pounding fists and giving bro hugs and probably lighting up cigars and, going out for the night and getting hammered. After they, place those undrafted free agent phone calls, right? Of course. But it's interesting. We'll talk a little bit about it. Again, I'm up and down. We'll kind of pack everything and see what we got.
Let me ask first, in terms of disappointments, name me one player you wish the Bears would have acquired, somebody on your wish list, someone you were hoping would be a day 3 acquisition, or even, a day 2 acquisition that fell to day 3. Danny, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I'll give you names, but I'll just give you a position group. Receiver. I mean, I don't know what the plan is at receiver. I mean, Velus Jones was okay, a good start, solid start, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, I thought you got to come out here with another receiver at least. And a couple of names that kept dropping and finally got taken was Bo Melton, the kid from Rutgers. Guy gives you some of that twitch ability, guy gives you some of that 4.4 speed, can make plays on field. There are a number of other receivers that are taken, but another one that actually fell through that there wasn't any draft, that was Justin Ross. And I think that the kid from Clemson, that kid's got some medical issues. So hopefully they're on the phone with him and they're going to potentially sign him as an undrafted free agent. But that's a talented kid that when, as a freshman and sophomore, I mean, he was looking like a for sure top 10, top 15 kind of pick there. So, definitely want to, see him bring another receiver. I mean, there's some other small school guys. There's a kid from Utah State, Devin Tompkins, that I'm a big fan of, but he might be an undrafted free agent target here as well. Hopefully we'll see. But just in general, I think you needed another receiver, and then also the defensive tackle position was also something that was not addressed here at all. Garrett Haskell from Ohio State. I know there are times where he's overmatched at the line of scrimmage, but there's also his ability to be able to shoot those gaps and get into the backfield. Khalil Davis from UCF. I know he's coming off a torn ACL, but that guy would have looked nice in terms of the system, the scheme the Bears had here. So interesting to see. I mean, they went to get a running back, which I totally threw me off. I understand that was more of a special teams, probably a special teams thing there. a second safety right now towards tail end of the draft, and Hicks, the kid from Cal, which I haven't even looked at, to be honest with you. So, I mean, they got a punter because we knew they needed a punter. I mean, they passed up Ariza a couple times too in terms of, the punter. So yeah, just a lot of question marks. I love what he did with the offensive line. So we can get into that, but just to answer your question, there's a ton of questions I had in terms of position groups that they looked like they ignored.
Mm-hmm. Niel, I know there were a number of guys that you really liked that were bypassed. Why don't you share some names with us?
A lot of guys. I'm going through the undrafted free agent list right now as Danny was kind of giving his names. So far, the Bears have come to terms with Buffalo linebacker Kadofi Wright and Utah State wide receiver Savon Scarver. Don't know too much about either of those two guys. Other guys that were available when we were still picking that ended up coming to terms with other teams. Colts have come to terms with offensive tackle Ryan Vandermark from UConn. We got Kellen Deesh, the offensive lineman out of Arizona State, played left tackle for them. Is going to be an inside guy projected for us. A guy that, I love his athletic ability, his smooth feet. He's an easy mover. I felt he would be a guy definitely that we would try and bring in just as a guy that's super athletic, that can, probably play anywhere on the interior. Moving on down the list here, you got the Notre Dame defensive lineman, Myron Tagovailoa Mosa, that I likened as a guy that would probably fit pretty decently well at 3-tech. He's a guy that's played 5. He's played edge. He's done a few different things. Gone through 2 different variations of body types. He's 270 right now. Played in the 280s when last year when he was playing primarily on the inside at Notre Dame, and he's a guy that's got exceptional first step, vertical burst, and presents some pass rush ability inside. I felt like he would be a guy that you would target on day 3 as I kind of have right next to his name sleeper, because as we're going along, we're into like rounds 5 and 6. He's still not taken. At this point, he's a sleeper pick.
Yeah.
Really, that's kind of all I got right now as far as UDFA agreements. The wide receiver position, coming into day 3, I wrote down a massive list of names. But at the top of that list of names, I had Kyle Phillips out of UCLA, Bo Milton out of Rutgers, Calvin Austin out of Memphis, Romeo Doubs out of Nevada, Mekhi Polk out of Mississippi State, Jalen Naylor out of Michigan State, the Austin kid out of Notre Dame, Ross we talked about out of Clemson, Dontavian Martin out of Oklahoma State, who had a really, really nice East-West Shrine game, really showed out and made a bunch of plays.
He wasn't drafted, right, Neil? T. Martin wasn't.
He wasn't drafted.
That's
Nobody
another kid I would target as well in terms of UDFA.
100%. Going further down this list, the Calvin Turner kid out of Hawaii, I think, is a sleeper. Reggie Roberson at SMU, a very productive, steady, solid, reliable receiver over the course of his career at SMU. Didn't get drafted. Stanley Berryhill of Arizona, kind of like a smaller, a little bit more of a shifty outside guy that was highly productive in the Pac-12. Didn't get picked. Going back to the interior offensive line, while we were messing around with some of these other picks, we let Chris Paul go, Zach Tom go, Luke Wattenberg go, Max Mitchell go, Andrew Stuber, Cordell Volson, Darian Kennard, Burford out of UTSA, and let's see, got the Walker kid out of Penn State, Let's Go out of North Dakota, with Darian Lowe out of Illinois. There are the offensive linemen that we passed up, in addition to Kellen Deesh, who's already signed his UDFA agreement. Interior, defensive line guys. I think my favorite sleeper in his entire class was Matt Henningsen out of Wisconsin. That kid is a 3 technique all the way. Tested out of the gym with a 37+ vertical. Close to I think it was like a 10.5. Something around there. Broad jump, ran really well. Explosive on his get off. It's like a 1.7 something get off. And you watch his film. I watched him against Notre Dame and Penn State on film. Wasn't the guy that jumped off when I was watching the game live. Granted, I was watching that game at a bar, so it's kind of hard to watch guys, jump off the TV broadcast live. But going back and watching the game, Matt Henningsen jumped off the tape. He was a guy that took a guy like Rasheed Walker at Penn State, threw him on his ass with one arm. In terms of his pass rush, took him on a double team, took Rasheed Walker's, basically, single arm, pushed him, 5 yards back onto the ground. I like that kid's violence. I love his motor. I love his play strength. I think he's going to be an interesting kid that came into Wisconsin as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, and was a full-time starter towards the tail end of his career. has been basically underrated his entire life. I think he's going to have a serious shot to do something in the NFL. Let's look at some of these other guys. We took a safety late. The Hicks kid we took late. We passed up Verone McKinley for.
Well, let's do this, Neil. Why don't we go pick by pick, and that way we can have a sense of order and get everybody's opinions on the players. Let's start with the first pick of the day for the Chicago Bears, Braxton Jones, the offensive tackle out of Southern University. He wasn't heavily recruited out of high school. He chose Southern Utah, where he graduated with a degree in marketing. Was it marketing or a degree in marketing? So Neil, why don't you start with your observations on Braxton Jones?
Well, he was one of those guys. I was in Mobile, 6'5" and a quarter, 310, 10.28 hand, 35 and 3.8, arm 83 and a half, wingspan, ran really well at the combine with a 4.97, 1.74 get off, 25 and a half vert and a 9 on the broad, and then a 4.84 in the shuttle, 7.59 on the cone. He's a guy that doesn't move very well laterally. He's a guy that doesn't seem very explosive. To me, he could have done a hell of a lot better at the Senior Bowl than he actually did. I didn't see him as a guy that had a whole lot of strength at the point of attack or very powerful at all. But he can move a little bit. He can move his feet a little bit. He can stay and mirror with some defenders. I think he's 100% a developmental guy. In terms of developmental guys, he was on my list below Matt Waletzko, that's for sure. But a guy that definitely has some measurables. He's got some traits. He's a guy that could potentially down the line be a factor at left tackle. Is he the guy that expect to go ahead and make a difference immediately? Absolutely not. But he's going to be an interesting guy down the road. That's for sure.
Danny, your thoughts on this left tackle?
Yeah, Braxton Jones is the guy I identified first couple of weeks, first couple of practices down at the Senior Bowl, and he impressed me down there right away. You look at his size, 6'5", 310, 35, 3/8 arm length. So he's got the the length and the size for a left tackle. 2-time All Big Sky, first team selection, 3-year starter. So he's got the experience there. First thing I noted down about him is size and length. I love that about the kid. He's got the athletic traits, in my opinion, to play left tackle. Right, for me, he's got the foot quickness. He's got the lateral agility to be able to get to his set spots quickly. He can mirror and maintain position in pass pro as long as he stays squared and he plays long, which means he extends his arms. So I think he's got that potential there. There were times at the Senior Bowl where you saw some bad technique. That's something you got to coach him up. Can stop moving his feet, elevate his pads. Those taller offensive linemen usually get their pads elevated, lose leverage. So stuff like that. I think those are all things that can be coachable. So definitely a nice developmental type of prospect that you can bring in here and develop as hopefully a future left tackle. But like Neil said, I don't think he answers your question about who's going to be playing left tackle for you next year.
Let's listen to a little bit of Braxton Jones talking with the media about an hour and a half ago.
So actually, I obviously talked to the Bears I talked to them at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, like everyone kind of else does and stuff like that. But, the Bears had called my agent a little bit later, like actually earlier this week, which was, such a surprise. And they asked for a private workout down here in Salt Lake. So that was great. We did the workout. I went to dinner with the offensive line assistant, and that was just wonderful. And then we did the workout the next morning. It went well, and now I'm here, so I'm just excited, man.
Yeah, what day was the workout, and who was the coach who was there?
It was Coach King, Austin King. Yes, sir. And the workout was Monday, and we had dinner on Sunday.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Larry Mayer.
Deborah Vance is intrigued by the idea of you writing jokes for her.
Interrupt this program for a commercial.
Just in case you're wondering about HBO Max.
Bye. There you go. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of see now the importance of the Senior Bowl. 4 players that were drafted were all at the Senior Bowl. We all saw at the Senior Bowl. So that's why Jim Nagy, hats off. Great job of picking these talent players. I think I don't even think any. I was trying to go through the roster to see if any of the players were undrafted on the Senior Bowl roster. I didn't get through all of them, but I think if anybody went undrafted, it's a very small amount of guys.
Mm-hmm. The Bears are already saying that he is a candidate to start at left tackle. Now,
Okay.
those are typically the things that coaches say, but they're going to throw him in there with the idea of perhaps he can win that starting left tackle.
Yeah, athletically and lengthwise, size-wise, he excites me. I mean, he's a guy that, like I said, stuck out to me the first two practices. Toward the game, I got a little disappointed in terms of his technique, and it gets overpowered sometimes in terms of point of attack strength. But definitely a guy that excites me in terms of what he can potentially be once he's fully coached up and he's fully developed.
Mm-hmm. Did he play left tackle all his career in college?
Yeah,
Do you guys know?
3-year starter left tackle for Southern Utah.
So that's his home.
Yep.
That's good to hear. Now he does say that he can be versatile if necessary, but clearly that's his position. Good to hear. All right, let's move on to the next player they drafted, which was a very intriguing prospect here in round 5 from the Bengals, number 174, Dominique Robinson, the defensive end out of Miami of Ohio. This guy actually was recruited as a quarterback receiver, and then I think it was maybe just 2 years ago.
2020, 2020, he made the switch over to defense.
Right. Why don't you take it over, Danny, and tell us about Robinson?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they went here, just because the trait wise he's more of an outside linebacker to me, but I see where they can kind of envision him getting a little bit stronger and putting his hand on the ground. And like I said, Aldo, 6'5", 253. This kid was a high school basketball player. Also played football, but then he came to Miami, Ohio as a quarterback, then went to receiver, then got switched over to defense. Another kid that was down at Mobile on the Senior Bowl. Terrific athletic numbers. 4.7, 240, had a 1.61 10-yard split. So we talked about that before. That is elite type of first step quickness off the line of scrimmage. 41-inch vertical for a kid at 6'5", 253, 7.193 cone. Highly athletic edge rusher with length, which is I put down here on terms of when I'm watching his tape and on his notes. Great first step, great get off, as we just talked about, his 1.61 10-yard split. So you love seeing that. Has that twitchy frame that could handle more weight, in my opinion. So meaning that he's twitchy, he's athletic. You can put on about 10 pounds of muscle, not worry about him losing any of that explosiveness off that frame. Displays a good balance and bend. What you look for in terms of as an edge rusher or pass rusher. Loose hips, he can loop around stuns. Is very effective up front. One of those tackle and kind of games stunts up front there. Real smooth mover in space. It doesn't have to slow down or anything like that. You don't see any sort of stiffness in his lower body. Good ankle flexion, which is all things you are positives for guys that are coming off the edge, flying off the edge as pass rusher. So. Plays hard with a motor. You can see this guy doesn't stop at all. The only thing is obviously he can get blown off the line of scrimmage in terms of when you run at him, right? He's not a real good run defender yet. You see his frame is a little light there. So if you're gonna put his hand in the ground and line him up a defensive end, you better. It's probably going to be more on these passing down situations, right? So I think initially he's going to be coming in here as a guy that could be as like a situational pass rusher. So we'll see what their plan is for him. But definitely a kid that's explosive. It's twitchy. He's got the size. He's got the length that you want to see in your edge rusher. So definitely very intrigued by this kid. Like I said, I was a little bit surprised because I kind of had once I looked at his tape, I kind of seen him more of a 3-4 outside linebacker fit. Mm-hmm. But hey, you cannot deny that kid has the motor, has the traits, has the athletic ability. So let's just see how they develop him and how they use him.
Yeah, what do you think, Neil?
Yeah, I kind of agreed. He sort of has that body type of guys that we talked at length about last year when we were talking about edge rushers. One of the first couple shows of the fall. He's got that length, he's got that size that's kind of similar on paper to like a Travis Gibson. And so as a guy who has, it looks like from what I've seen, he's done nothing but put his hand in the dirt for the most part and rush off the edge. But the thing about him is that he's still developing. He still has an incredibly high ceiling. As a former wide receiver, he still has things he needs to learn, the finer nuances of rushing the passer and playing with your hand in the dirt. The things that he brings with him from the wide receiver position is knowing how to use his body and be able to use angles and leverage and everything else. He does show good body control. He can use a really good sharp change of direction. He has good lateral agility. He can manipulate his body really well. can put slower, less athletic guys across from him off balance and win the one-on-one battle. The things about him just cons right now is like developing the strength, developing the power, the arsenal of pass rush moves, understanding how to have a plan going into your rush. And again, like I said, just like learning the finer nuances of how to rush a passer, how to play on the edge with your hand in the dirt, only playing it for, what seems like, 15 minutes now. And, moving forward from there, when Eberflus came in and we were talking about the biggest thing about his background that stands out is that he's a developmental guy, right? There's linebackers and defensive players in his past that have gone from good to great, from great to all pro. Mm-hmm. And so what you look at from the standpoint of some of these guys that we brought in from a defensive standpoint, Dominique Robinson is one where I looked for him to develop significantly underneath Matt Eberflus, and I'm blanking on the D-line coach right now, but I'm sure they have the same thought process in mind in terms of how you develop a guy to make him great. I'm looking to see what this kid does in the offseason, and if he becomes functional this fall as a sub-package guy, as a situational guy. And the traits on this kid are really intriguing, and that's one that's really kind of halfway exciting to have, that you'd never expected would be picked today. I had two defensive ends on my list today to kind of keep an eye out for, and they took one of them.
Good. All right, let's listen to a little bit of Dominique talking to the media about an hour ago. Let's see if I can cue this up quickly. Dominique Robinson.
Deciding that was the position for you.
Yeah, so I got recruited as a quarterback athlete. Miami of Ohio was my only offer. Took the offer, got there, or graduated early, went in the spring. Had an opportunity to move to wide receiver, so I took it because I wasn't getting as much reps at quarterback. Played quarterback for 3 seasons. Wide receiver for 3 seasons. And, things didn't pan out at the end of 2019. So I ended up talking to Coach Martin, my head coach, about moving to defensive end. And, I made that move. What propelled me to make that move was I watched, I had a boy, Jamal Davis, that we kind of are similar alike, build. So, and they was like, man, you can do that. You can, some of my teammates was like, bro, you can play defense. So I always had it in the back of my head. Then I'm watching Chase Young running around people, and, so I felt that I could do it. So here we are.
Let's listen to one more.
Hey, Dominique, what was it like, your experience at the Senior Bowl, and how is it going against your new teammate in Braxton Jones?
Oh, man, it was great. I enjoyed my experience at the Senior Bowl. I love, being able to get a glimpse of what NFL football will be like before I even get there. So now I have an expectation of what it's going to be like, once I go into camp and everything. But hey, me and Braxton, I think we had a couple reps. He was on the other team, so we had a couple reps where I went against him. So it's going to be fun.
Sounds like a great guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, it sounds like athletic. Athletic. Sounds like a good kid who, who's obviously open to playing, and he's willing to change positions. And he's not just like saying, I came as a quarterback or I came as an athlete and I want to play offense. He said, let me just go and see what I can do here. And then obviously looked into it, researched it, and you just obviously this tells me this is a guy that can be coached up, right? So I think the Bears kind of felt the same way after met him and interviewed him. So I think they have an idea in which what they're going to do here with him. I hope they have a plan in terms of how they're going to get this kid to a level where he's going to be, either a situational pass rusher or someone that develops into a full-time starter.
Mm-hmm. All right, we move over to round 6, and Zachary Thomas, the offensive tackle from San Diego State. This is somebody that Danny identified in probably the second or third show of the season. It caught your eye, I guess, over at the Senior Bowl. Is that why? Yep.
Another kid that caught my eye at the Senior Bowl. And, again, talk about when I look at my tackles, or I'm looking at guys who got the length, got the size, got the athletic ability, the agility, all I look for to be able to offset some of that speed on the edge. And I'm telling you, Zach Thomas did a pretty good job there at the Senior Bowl, 6'5", 308 with 33 7/8 arm length. A 3-year starter at right tackle for San Diego State, and then to play, I think last year he played 12 games at left tackle, so he's got the experience where he's played both sides, left and right. and he's also played right guard as well. So he gives you multiple position versatility too. So that's something that's always a plus there. Athletic again, especially for this scheme. This is wide, stretch zone scheme. I'm looking for kids that are going to be able to move laterally, maintain their blocks, get to the second level, maintain those second level blocks. So this is all the things that I saw with Zach Thomas coming out of San Diego State, and I think this is a kid of all the 3 or 4 offensive linemen that they drafted today. I think this is a kid that can come in and compete right away for a spot on the offensive line. Now, will it be left tackle? I'm not sure. We'll see. But I definitely would like to put him out there and see what he does.
This is some of the tape that you identified. I don't know if you still have your notes from that, but this is him circled at the left tackle position and getting to that second level quickly.
Yeah, this is clip 1, right? So this is him moving inside his shoulder, dips down. You see him get the defensive lineman to play tall, causing him to lose leverage as he rides him back into the ground. So, showing athletic ability to dip that lower shoulder, get the defensive lineman's shoulders pads elevated, and then just finishing off that block. This one here, again, you see him elevating here to the second level defender. He turns and seals that defender off, and solidly showing that again that solid quickness off the snap to be able to get out there and get to the point where he could block that guy and let the running back sneak in behind him for a nice gain there. So again, I want to see guys that are quick out of their stance into the second level, get their hands on a second level linebacker or defender, and make sure they do their job in center, creating that lane or crease for the running back. Next one here, defensive end gets inside to his chest plate. He recovers here, but then drives him into the turf. Showing some of that subtle nastiness. Again, opens up his chest, he gets into him, but he is able to recover, and then he just kind of takes it out on him. Says, all right, before you get anywhere further, let me just lay you back down here on the ground. So some subtle nastiness in him, which I do like to see in his tape. It's not overtly obvious in terms of how nasty he is, but he's got some of that in him. Here, this last clip here, we're going to see him. He's going to chip, and he's going to leak out to that lead blocker. And become a lead blocker. Sorry, on the screen pass. It doesn't look real pretty here, but he's effective in terms of getting his helmet on the defender, blocking him, downfield and along for that first down. So. Again, just gets out there, gets what he can, and doesn't look pretty at the end there because he gets kind of flipped over. But again, we're talking about a kid that at 6'5", 308, quick out of his stance into that second level. You see that there he was a lead blocker. So that's what you want in this system. You want guys that can get out to that level quickly. You want guys that can move laterally. You want guys that can maintain their blocks for a longer period of time, especially if you're going to be going east and west. So definitely a kid that I earmarked for the Bears in their scheme, and I'm definitely happy. I think this kid has a chance to start right away.
Neil, Swanky asked, could this guy or the other 2 tackles compete with Larry Borum or move inside to right guard?
Could this guy or the other 2 tackles? Yeah, absolutely. They can compete. I'm not this guy isn't. I don't think a right tackle. I think he's going to end up, moving inside. And, the thing about Zach Thomas that I love is that, he brings the unteachable things like the length and the athletic ability, the lateral agility, the mean streak, the physicality, the strength that he plays with. Now at the point of attack, I feel like the term play strength is something that he needs to continue to develop. But he does have a strong demeanor about him, the way that he plays. I talked before all the time about, there's 2 schools out west that I would always take a guy from defensively. That's Utah and that's San Diego State. After spending two seasons with Brady Hoke at Ball State, Brady Hoke's over at San Diego State now. One thing I learned about Brady Hoke is that he cultivates toughness and physicality. Those are 2 things that he cares about more so than anything else. And all these guys that come out of that program, if they don't have anything else, they're tough, they're physical, they're nasty, they're ass kickers, right? And that's what I love about Zach Thomas. Now, again, there's some things that he needs to develop a little bit more about his game, be more consistent with his technique, being a little bit more, powerful and functionally strong with his play strength. But he has all the unteachable things. It's just a matter of getting him in the weight room, coaching him up, getting him where you need him to be. He's the one that excited me the most out of anybody that we picked today.
Excellent. No, that's good to hear. He redshirted, right? Didn't he have 5 or 6 years of playing college football, I believe?
Yeah, in 2018, he played in 3 games, and then he got injured. So he redshirted the rest. I think he tore his ACL.
Gotcha.
2018, yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next selection. He's the running back out of Baylor, Trestan Ebner. Neil, you want to start off with this one?
Yeah, I can go with Trestan Ebner. Trestan, he's an all-purpose back that did a lot of different things at Baylor. Was the 2021 special teams player of the year in the conference. Was a first team all purpose back type kid. Ran for 800 yards and a couple touchdowns. Caught about 300 yards worth of passes, another couple touchdowns. Electric in the return game. To be honest with you, I thought that we had that kind of figured out with Velus Jones coming in and returning kicks and punts. But then we go ahead and take this kid. I think he's the guy that they brought in order to go ahead and be a returner. Last year we brought in Daz Newsome and Khalil Herbert in order to be the kick and punt returner. So we have options there actually for we have some depth in terms of return game for the first time I feel in my lifetime, instead of just like one guy you're relying on to kind of take care of those responsibilities. But yeah, I mean interesting kid. Like I said, he's got some electricity to him. Pull up his numbers real quick. He's 5'10", 3/4, 206. So well-built kid. Ran 4.42 at the combine. Jumped 30 inches, a 9'7" broad jump. Not overly explosive stuff. He didn't do incredibly well in the agility drills. The 7.16 combine or cone time was towards the top end of his position group. So he performed well. The thing about him is he's going to come in and immediately be a factor on special teams in the return game, and that's what excites you about Trestan Ebner.
His pass catching is pretty impressive too. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what he's known for, mainly for a special teams player. He was 2 back-to-back special teams player of the year, all Big 12, and then his ability as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's got pretty good hands coming out of there. We saw some of those that one route down the sidelines there, makes a nice over the shoulder catch. To be honest with you, I'm surprised they drafted a running back. To be totally honest with you guys, I thought they were kind of set, especially when they signed Darrington Evans off of from the Tennessee Titans. I think that would be, what they would go for. And I think they would bring in a couple in terms of undrafted free agents just for, for camp bodies and all that stuff. But, to actually utilize a draft pick on a running back would really, shocked me. So, this kid's calling card is his hands, his ability to catch out of the backfield, and is his ability as a returner. So, if that's what they're going to see him or use him at initially, like all of a sudden, maybe some of these guys might end up on the practice squad. We'll see. David Montgomery's going to the final year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not saying this guy's going to come in and replace David Montgomery, but you never know what the Bears are thinking in terms of the future. They got Khalil Herbert there as well. Maybe they're gonna see what rides out in terms of the Montgomery contract and all that stuff. So, that's the thing when you bring in a new regime, right? Guys that were here for a couple of years previously, you think, oh, they're safe. They have established themselves as team leaders, as guys that you go to on offense. With a new regime, everything's up in the air. So we'll see what happens after this season. So that's the only thing I can think of is you bring in a guy like this that gives you immediate help on special teams, and then B, could be in a pipeline to if you ever lose David Montgomery. So we'll see what happens.
The kid that I wish they would have taken in place of Trestan Ebner was actually the Ty Chandler kid out of North Carolina. A guy I've talked about on the show before. I kind of had him down as one of my sleeper picks as a guy that he performed really well at the East West Shrine game. Is like a 5'10", similar size, like a 5'10 plus, 200 plus, type of kid that ran really well. Showed some explosion at the East West Shrine game. Clocked over 19.5 miles per hour on the Zebra GPS. He was a guy that had one of the best yards per second measurements at that particular All-Star game, and a guy that he showed good ability between the tackles, finding the holes, good vision, nice feet, could catch the ball out of the backfield. I felt was a guy that projected better as a useful weapon on offense than Trestan Ebner. Not that Ebner is not a useful weapon on offense, but I think Ebner's calling card, like we were just talking about, he's more of a special teams guy, whereas Ty Chandler is more of an offensive weapon. I guess they're going a little bit more special teams focused. I'm not sure really what Ty Chandler's history has been in terms of return game. If that was really the focus on that pick, I guess I understand why they went there.
Very good. All right, let's go on to the final of the 3 6-round picks they had, and that's the center out of Illinois, Doug Kramer, 2-time team captain. Stay with you, Neil. Tell us what you know about Doug Kramer.
Not a whole lot, honestly. I didn't get that far down my list to watch a whole lot of Doug Kramer. He's an average size, interior offensive lineman that probably has one projection as a one-trick pony at center, 6'2", flat, 301. A little bit shorter on the arm length at 31 3/4. The wingspan wasn't great at 77 3/8. But the thing about him is he brings leadership into the locker room. He's a local kid from Hinsdale. He's got a lot of play history. He's a tough kid. He's a decent athlete in space. But in terms of his athletic ability, I think he's marginal. I think he's a guy that's going to come in, be a depth guy. If nothing else, be a camp body that has the ability to move himself, prove himself up the roster. I do like that he does seem to have an aggressive streak to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, when we're talking about building the culture in the locker room, specifically the offensive line room, you want guys that are intelligent, that are strong, that are tough, that have some mean streak, have some nasty, have some leadership, really good high character guys. Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham, very much the same type of dudes. I see them molding this offensive line room kind of in the mold, kind of in the shadow of what they were as players.
Well, one thing that he's got going for him, according to Swanky, is that he's really good with the ladies because Swanky knows him from his time at Illinois.
Tell us about him, Swanky. Tell us about him.
Yeah, Danny's good with the ladies too. Why don't you take over, Danny?
I don't know if I'm Doug Kramer kind of level. But yeah, like we touched on it, guys. This is a kid that's center only. He doesn't project to any other interior position, so that's a little bit limiting in terms of what he can provide to you. It doesn't give you that position versatility, but like you touched on, Aldi, he's a 3-time team captain, or 2-time honorable mention All Big Ten, and a 2-time academic All Big Ten. So the kid has got leadership, the kid's got smarts, and that's what you usually look for your center, because the center you make all the line adjustments, all the line calls and all that stuff. So you look for that for your starter. So the kid's very well versed, very well experienced. Solid foot agility. This is another guy that can move laterally and sustain his blocks. Again, as we talk about with this new zone scheme, or I shouldn't say new, but with this scheme that they're going to be running, is the guys got to be able to move laterally, got to be able to escape out of that, to the next level and be able to reach your next level blocks. And this guy does a good job at it. I put down here on his notes: athletic move blocker, can flip his hips and block off backside pursuit. Solid at anchoring. Believe it or not, this guy can take on a bull rush and kind of set himself. With the wide base, set his feet, good knee bend and anchor. Works well with his offensive guard and pass protection. You see the kid's always looking to find work. He's not going to just sit there and just be like, all right, I got nothing to do here. And it's, again, elevating to the next level is another thing I put on his notes here. Elevating to the next level is something that he does well. There are a couple concerns in terms of, I put down OTG a couple times, which means on the ground. And, I don't like seeing my offensive linemen on the ground, losing their balance. So that's something he's going to have to work on. Play strength is going to be an issue. There's times that he got blown back by a linebacker, blown backwards by a defensive lineman. So obviously, to get bigger, stronger, better here at the next level. So that's something that has to get there as well, as get stronger, be a little bit more stout at the point of contact. But yeah, smart kid, experienced starter, athletic enough to play center here. And it's going to be a center. So I don't know if this means Mustafer's got to look over his shoulders for his possible spot on the roster. Is this guy that they have in terms of plans for a future as a starting center, and then you move the kid Patrick over to guard? We'll see what happens. But I'm not predicting he's going to come in and be a starter next year. But I'm just saying he's a kid that they like in terms of guy who's athletic, who's smart, who's got the experience, and I think that's why they picked him here.
Very good. Let us move on to the next pick, which was the first of 3 7th rounders. And that is this kid who Jim Nagy, the executive director over at the Senior Bowl, tweeted this about him. And he said, NFL scouts pulled double duty after LSU Pro Day to check out Southern offensive lineman Ja'Tyre Carter, who had one of the most impressive big man workouts this draft cycle. Carter posted all-timer levels, 34.5 vertical jump at 312 pounds. Also a 9.3 broad jump and a 5.04, 5.02 in the 40. Carter is getting drafted. Pretty impressive when you get a note like that from Jim Nagy. That's going to make people take account. There were about, I think, 16 scouts there. What do you guys think about Mr. Carter?
Yeah, this one is really exciting to me too. I mean, I tell you, Zach Thomas was one I liked a lot. Braxton Jones I liked a lot, and I like this guy even too, as well too. This guy played tackle at Southern, but he's going to be kicked inside the guard. And I just went back some of my notes of what I put down here in terms of when I saw him at the Senior Bowl. Again, another kid from the Senior Bowl. First of all, he's got a basketball background in high school. So you see, I think Thomas, Jones, Braxton Jones and Zach Thomas also had basketball backgrounds in their prep days. So obviously we look for polls are looking for those guys with that basketball background to see guys who are athletic, guys that can move their feet. So this kid had received scholarships to go to college on a basketball scholarship, but he ended up choosing football. So again, solid athletic frame, 6'3", 311, 33 5/8 arm length. Solid feet. Again, this is another guy that can show some agility in space. He can move and block laterally. Active, strong hands, really strong grip. When the guy gets his hands on you, he locks you up and you can't move away from him. So that's one thing you notice initially right away is that his grip strength is pretty impressive there as well. Quick out of his stance to the second level. Once he gets on a second level linebacker, just check out some of his practice tapes at the Senior Bowl. Check out some of his clips there at Southern. Once he gets to that second level, he gets to that linebacker, he locks him up. That guy doesn't get free from him. So that's something that really, really intrigues me with this kid. And again, I'm predicting this guy's going to be kicked inside the guard. Was a tackle at Southern, but I think he's going to be a guard at the next level in the NFL.
Yeah, so this is some of that practice tape that I know you and Neil looked at. Neil, your thoughts on this player?
Yeah, he's a guy that really did better for himself coming out of the combine into his pro day. We saw those numbers at the pro day. His combine numbers were a little bit on the edge of mark. Were good.
Sorry to jump in, but that's Logan Hall, guys, right there. I just want to point that's Logan Hall he's going up against, a guy that all of us agreed that would have been a nice pick. And the way he locks him up, Hall has no ability to break away from him. There's a couple other clips here where you see him going up against Logan Hall, Travis Jones, a very impressive kid. Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm glad you pointed that out. I wasn't. I was looking at my notes, wasn't paying attention. But yeah, he elevated himself. From the combine to the pro day, improved all of his numbers, increased 4 inches on his vert, increased a few inches on his broad, ran better, ran a whole 1/10 of a second better, showed more and better agility at his pro day, and he really opened some eyes at the combine as well. The way he was able to move in space, the way he executed that W drill that I always talk about, that I love. When you're starting on your back, getting up from that is sort of like one fluid motion, moving forward and backward, left to right, showing fluidity in space. And again, Danny, kind of touched on the thing I think is most important with him is that, and we're not really most important, but the biggest thing with him, the most intriguing thing with him is how heavy and strong his hands are. Like when he locks onto you, he can control the man across from him, and he can kind of set the tone. Again, just establishing in the locker room right now and in the offensive line room, strong, athletic dudes that play tough, play physical, that have some sort of meanness and finish about him. Interesting kid, still a little bit raw, right? He's still one of those guys that he hasn't played on the inside. That's where he's going to play here. Needs the experience of playing that position. What we got going on here?
We got live Eberflus and Poles meeting the media. Why don't we listen? And I apologize for the interruption.
We wanted
Let's
to
do it.
make that there's no lines between scouts and coaches and scouts. It's the Chicago Bears trying to make us better, and I think we did that in the last couple of days. But just thank you to those guys and everybody involved.
Braxton and Dominique.
It's in slow motion. I'm like, everybody sounds like they're drunk.
Let's hit normal speed here. There we go.
48 and 50.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to tell.
You sound tired though.
Folded, but there were guys that we liked, our staff liked, the coach was talking about, both the coaching staff and the personnel department liked. So they would have been targeted for sure.
When you woke up this morning,
I think he's wearing the same clothes he's had all week.
There's a bedroom up there. It's comfortable.
Although I haven't done laundry in a month.
How many times you wanted to? Was there a number of finishing returns and 8 picks?
It's a feel, and I mentioned this I think yesterday. It really was based off of the volume of players in certain ranges. And then when you felt like the number was getting low, it was time to kind of cut it out and start picking players. And there was moments where, we said, no, we're going to start picking players. And then there's opportunities where, let's move again and get more, because that's what the board was telling us to do.
Right. One of the scouts said there's no Wall Street feeling sometimes when the phone's ringing and you guys miss the news.
Yeah.
Did you feel a jolt of energy there? Because they said that you would be ready.
Yeah, it's like anything. I mean, I'm sure coach will have the same conversations when we're playing games. It comes down to preparation. We rep this out over and over and over again. So when you do it, it's very calm. The energy is good. No one's panicking. We're communicating at a high level with each other, and it worked out perfectly, I thought.
When you talk about racing the lines between the scouting staff and the coaching staff, you have your scouting staff, you have the whole personnel department. How did you then incorporate Matt into the process of picking players, particularly as it pertains to the two defensive backs you took in the second round?
Yeah, so we got together as a group and went over players a while back there, right around after the combine, I think it was. So we had those conversations and we would stack players, and Matt, I would just keep funneling, players and stacks of guys to Matt. Sometimes we go to different positions and I'd say this guy versus this guy. And we just worked through that over and over and over again. He's the defensive guy at heart. So when we take defensive players, he's pumped about it, but he's also really excited when we take offensive players because he knows the balance that you got to have on a football team. So, we're aligned with guys on both sides of the ball.
Dominique Robinson is a guy who was playing wide receiver years ago. I'm curious what you see in him skill set wise, and then just the importance of putting together a developmental plan with a guy who, by his own admission, is very raw at that position.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have selected that player if we didn't believe in our coaching staff. We didn't see the upside in the player. And again, I always refer back to the very beginning when we stood up here. We try to say what we mean and be transparent. Like, we brought a lot of really good teachers in this building, so that's where it pays off. This guy is long, he's flexible, he can dip, and he's fairly new to the position, but you saw the flashes. And an old mentor of mine, told me when it comes to defensive players, grade the flashes. You can develop that. You get more. If you can do it once, you can do it again. So we all saw that, and I'm excited to see what kind of player he turns into.
Right, that you guys drafted. Do you see those guys as competing for starting spots realistically, or are they depth pieces? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I won't put limitations on where they're going to fit. May it be a process where you start depth and work your way into a starter. It may work that way. There's going to be some surprises we see across the league all the time where guys shoot to the top quickly and they earn that trust and they make plays and they're rolling. So obviously you hope for the best, but there might be a process. It takes time. This league's extremely hard and tough, and there's a lot thrown at these guys. But that's why we really emphasize the makeup that they have inside of them, because they're willing to go through the hard times. They're willing to listen. They're willing to put their pride away and start from the bottom and work up.
Right. Really like the offensive line depth of this draft, which honestly I took to mean that you didn't like the offensive line depth of this draft, but you were obviously being sincere. How much of a factor did that play in the fact that you guys chose to go defense at the top of the draft when so many people thought you may be eyeing offensive line?
Yeah, we addressed that yesterday in terms of I'm an offensive line guy. Like, obviously, I would fire away at all of them if I could, but it really comes down to the preparation. It comes down to the board and where guys are valued. And this year, where we sat, to me, there were two good starting level defensive players. And I would have made a huge mistake for this organization to say, you know what, let's just leave them there, let someone else take them. And then we're going to go to offense where they're not on the same level. And then you're kicking yourself a year or two later when that guy's at an all-pro. Yeah, I just did what I needed at the time. It comes back to discipline and doing things the right way. And I felt like that's going to be a decision that we're all happy with.
Yeah, I mean, just like we said on the onset, and that's a credit to Ryan and his discipline, because there's always players staring at you, at certain spots, and he stayed true to the board and stayed true to his discipline, and what the process was, and that's why we took those two guys. But what those guys bring is, they bring playmaking ability into your secondary, and that's a huge piece. And they're big, long players. Then big, long players, they create takeaways and they do a great job of, playing the ball. And that's what we're excited about. But those guys will fit right in. They work hard. They love football, and we're excited about each guy.
Yeah, this was new for you, but I suspect a little less so for Ryan because of your backgrounds. What was your first draft as a head coach like? What did the experience feel like?
Yeah, it was great. It was very enjoyable. I really enjoyed talking to the guys once they got picked. That was really enjoyable. We had some good conversations with those guys. How exciting it is for their families. I mean, you're changing guys' futures, and those guys have worked hard to get to this point. And man, you could hear their families in the background sometimes, and that was a thrill really to hear that. So.
Guys you pound on the table for? Anybody you pounded on the table? I'm not even asking who it was.
No, I think that's an older term probably, but I am too. I have old terms. I'm with you, but I think that when you go through this and you're looking at each other in the eye and being honest and just being thoughtful in our conversations of, hey, what makes us better, and then sometimes you have to listen to other people, and you're not always going to be right in this process, so you got to go back and look at the tape and say, okay, I got to go back and look at some more, maybe this game or that game and see this guy's skill set, whatever the position, and say, okay, yeah, I see it that way, or come back and say, hey, I don't, and have a good conversation. That's how you get to the right answer, I think. But if you get guys and get upset and pound the table, I think that's not the process we want. But yeah, so.
Ryan, go back to the trading. So I'm curious, how would you characterize these among the scouts? As there's more swings on the board for players they've spent a lot of time on evaluating, watching film on, and scouting guys they may like.
Yeah, no, you could definitely feel the excitement. More opportunities to do that. We had a cool deal this morning where, for what the board was set, I asked the guys to walk in front of the board with a notepad and write down 3 guys that they're absolutely convicted about. And we put stars on all their tags. And we ended up with, the majority of them were those guys. Because that's what you look for. Anytime someone has conviction about something, it means something. They've spent a lot of time. There's no wavering. So that was important. And that's part of the reason why I hope you all enjoy them coming down to speak with you, because it gives you information to tell. They spent so much time on the road and in those schools. It means a lot when you get a player drafted that you spend a lot of time with. So it's been a really good process for them.
The whole process after the draft, how crazy it is trying to get the undrafted guys. What's kind of your message to the scouts in terms of talking to the guys and what you want them to tell the players to sell them on coming here?
Yeah, competition, come and compete, opportunity where, it's a fresh set of eyes, both front office and coaching staff, willing to develop everyone. There's no bias, there's no nothing. We're just going to make sure that the best players are on the field, and that should mean a lot. But it is a crazy process. They're up there scrambling right now, and they're doing a really good job. This is probably the best process, the way we started this tonight after the draft that I've been a part of. Very organized. Again, using technology to stay connected and linked up while being in different rooms, so you don't have the noise and people scrambling and screaming and all that stuff. So it is a crazy time, but I will guarantee you there will be some guys from this undrafted free agent process that are going to develop and be good players.
I feel like that could be a spot to grab some more wide receivers, having only come away with Bayless at that position yesterday. Is college free agency, just given the depth of that group, where you probably go?
It might be. I'm not sure if that's where those players will come from, but I know we'll have quite a few in here that will compete, and we'll see if the cream rises to the top. And then we'll just keep. So then you're going to have rookie mini camps, so you'll have a bunch of tryout guys here. So that might be a spot for someone to make the roster or the 90-man and then develop from there. There's going to be a cut-down day for the 53 where there'll be talent that we will acquire from that as well. And then there's trades in season, before the season, during camp, and we'll just keep firing away. No, it was not intentional, but so last year after the draft, there was for this process, there was nobody. So it really was kind of a deal with COVID because a lot of these players took extra years, and then now it was a lot of those older players that got an extra year of football that were coming into the draft. So that's just kind of a part of this unique setup. Obviously, we all did some crazy stuff the last few years. It's just an effect of COVID on the draft that will linger probably for another year.
Circle back to Braxton Jones and sending some folks out there to visit and watch him work out earlier in the week.
Yeah, just spending more time with the player, get to know him a little bit better, get your hands on him, just to kind of gauge what the player has. You'd be surprised, like you can even like give someone a hug, like in person, you feel them. Man, you're like the lean mass, you can feel it, or small. It might be the other way. Just getting up on a person and seeing them close, like that it's just a piece of the puzzle. So we thought that was necessary, and hopefully it pays off for us.
What do you like about his upside?
Yeah, one of our O-line coaches went there. The feet, the length, the size, but also room to grow. There's a ceiling there that we believe we can develop, and a lot of times it's the makeup. It's also the body type and the physical traits, and we believe he has a lot of those pieces to develop.
Yeah, with the defense, a question for you about the personnel. You're some really good players when you walk in the door, like Roquan Smith. You have a lot of input on free agents, on the draft picks. How well aligned do you feel the personnel is with what you want to do defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's starting to line up. It's starting to line up. We're getting closer. We'll obviously have OTAs, and we'll figure out more pieces to the puzzle where guys line up, what they can do, what their skill sets are once we get going there. So it's going to be a process all the way through training camp. So but this was a great step in the right direction for sure.
Running back, Trestan Ebner, he was talking about how he loves to do it all, return kicks, run football, and he says that he likes catching passes the most. How do you guys envision using him?
Yeah, exactly that. I think he offers a combination of size and speed. What stood out with him is a lot of the outside zone scheme. He had feel, and you need feel and vision in that scheme. So we believe that he can come in and compete. I don't know, where that'll end up. But again, anytime you have competition, that whole room should get better. But yeah, catching the ball, run the ball, returns, special teams, all of that.
There's 11 players in the draft, and specifically the 8 players on day 3. How do you kind of evaluate in terms of what you would deem successful in terms of how many of those, specifically the 8 on day 3, actually make coach's final roster?
Yeah, that'll take some time. In scouting, we say it takes 3 years. I'd like to know tomorrow, but it'll take a year or two just to see, again, who develops, who jumps out real quick, who takes a little bit of time. So it'll take a little bit of time. I don't know if I have a specific number that I want to hit to make sure. I hope they all do. But we'll see how it goes.
Right, now that you're through the draft and kind of fine-tuning this roster, do you see it important to add a veteran at receiver and kind of add to that group?
Yeah, we'll get together and kind of look at the roster. The beautiful thing is we have rookie minicamp coming up this week, and we'll get to see a lot of these players out running around. We've seen our roster the last few weeks, and we'll just keep self-evaluating. And if that's the route we need to go, then we will. If we feel comfortable with our group, then we're still going to look for talent. We always will, but we'll just kind of take it one phase at a time.
Right. They were talking about they were drafted, and there was a clip of you talking about you guys had.
Yeah.
I just wondering if you could share with us what that was and what they were.
Yeah, each guy comes into my office and we have some time. Usually it's just about 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe sometimes it's 15. I think it was 15 with him, but we just had a great conversation about his upbringing and where he came from and what his core values are. And they really lined up with what we believe here at the Chicago Bears. So it was a great conversation. Really easy to talk to, and he's a strong young man.
This team hasn't used a draft pick on a punter since 2014, and there were a lot that went today. What made you want to use your final draft pick on a punter? Just knowing, I guess, like that's usually where they go in college free agency. Is there like a benefit versus drafting those guys versus like getting bidding wars with other teams?
That's exactly it. I mean, when you get into bidding wars, it's tough and it becomes unpredictable. So we identified him as a player that could come in and compete for that punter job. And instead of, going through the whole process, we decided just to get it done.
You guys had a few guys that kind of have that special teams demons tag on them, and especially in Bayless and a few others. How much does that enhance their value to get them slotted where you took them?
Yeah, it's a big part of our process in evaluation and placing them on the board, because what's tough is if you don't have the special teams ability and you're a backup player, it's really hard to stick on an active roster in the 53. So when you have that special, I know that you're dressing for game day because you're going to impact the game. If you don't have that, that's tough. So the other piece to that is usually the guys that have a background in special teams, they just have the right mentality, the competitive fire, the toughness, the competes, where to me that enhances who they are as a football player in whatever position they're in.
Philosophy with the moves you made today, playing the odds of the draft and acknowledging that you can't predict what you're going to get in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. So the more swings, the better.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Anytime you have more ammunition, the better in terms of getting hits, and that was kind of the thought process.
Hicks from Cal, a kid that makes a transition from corner to safety. Yep. Seems to do it fairly naturally and has a lot of ball production. I'm curious what you see in him, and particularly with your takeaway mindset, what you saw in him a year ago that strikes you.
Yeah, it's really good. It's his cover skill set. Being from both positions, you can see him doing a lot for you. You could match him up on certain players. He can play the deep part of the field. He's got great range in the deep part of the field. He's a physical player. So we were really excited to get him at the spot we got him. We were elated. So it's he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Ryan, the draft is usually when you see veterans traded. What's Nick Foles' status right now?
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet. Obviously, we'll update you. When the next move happens. We've kind of phased that into different phases. So now that it's post-draft, we'll have some conversations and see where we want to go next with that.
Ryan, when talking with the scouts, the impression players made at the Senior Bowl came up over and over. How important was that for you and your team to go down to Mobile, Alabama to finish out your evaluations?
Yeah, it goes back to sending our O-line coaches down to work some of those O-linemen out. It just, anytime you have that added exposure, the interviews, you get to see them up close and personal, and really you get the whole staff there too, because when you do school visits, usually we'll align it where it's 1 or 2, maybe 3 scouts going to a school. Now you have the whole staff. You see them compete. For some smaller school guys, they get to go against guys from Power 5 schools. So that exposure is important. It's a big part of the evaluation part.
Right. You talked about being choked up yesterday when you made that call to Tyler. And I know you're so caught up in the moment and everything you need to do with this roster, but will you take a moment to kind of reflect on this whole process and completing your first draft?
Yeah. Yep. I guess over the next few days, I definitely will. And, I was talking with Ian during the draft, really when we were about to finish it up, really having that post-action plan and going back and just looking at everything and what do we want to do better, what did we do really well, and just go through that, as well as the players that we drafted, and just keep making tweaks to it.
What you got done today with that position group?
Yeah, we added competition. And as I said, opening that when you have competition, we all have competition, it brings the best out of you, and anytime you add, and that the makeup of those guys also helps that as well. So it's all in an effort to get better, not only to improve, the skill set up front, but also just making the entire group function at a higher rate.
Ryan, that mentioned not only the trades you made, but the trades you didn't make. How many trade conversations were had during this weekend?
It's hard to even. So there's like a sheet that we have all the contacts in the room, and then some of our guys are designated as the specific trade teams. But then when you get into it, like all the phones are just going off, and when you're sitting in a certain spot, you get more action than other. I don't know what dictates that. It's probably just the players in that kind of clump. But, I mean, it's just like over and over and over again. And then, we have our landlines and you have your cell phone and then some people text. And so I can't tell you how many times the phone rang, but it was a lot.
Is there any text that you wish you had seen, but you just couldn't do it all?
No.
To Ryan's earlier point about bringing in guys and trusting you guys as teachers to do it, how do you kind of emphasize with your staff going forward the importance and the philosophy of the developmental piece of this now going forward with a bunch of guys here
Yeah, these are all young players. These guys that we just got today, they're all young. So we got to start from the ground zero with these guys, and we're not going to miss a step. And it's going to be the coaches that really bring these guys along to bring them up to speed. So when we get to OTAs and all that, we'll be running pretty good. So it's exciting.
Thank you all right. Great stuff there from General Manager Ryan Poles and head coach Matt Eberflus. Danny, what really stuck out for you there?
Yeah, the one thing that I've just got to say for Ryan Poles is he gives you something that you could take away from his press conferences. Other than Ryan Pace, right? He would just kind of talk in circles, and we're never really give you anything of what he was thinking about in terms of even after the draft. It was just one of those boring, like I'm doing this just because I have to do this, but I'm not giving you any information. And I think something about Ryan Poles is he makes a statement, and I think he goes back and kind of explains what he's trying to say and what he's trying to do. I mean, one of the first things I noticed was like they had a camera in the war room. I mean, like the TV network were showing these guys after they're making their picks. We never saw that with Ryan Pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why. The other thing is like he had the scouts come down and the area scouts come down and talk to the reporters about what they liked about the player after each pick was made, right? So that's never something we had under Ryan Pace, if I'm not mistaken. And the other thing is like, when yesterday, obviously after the Jones pick, everyone's was commenting that there are other options or, better players and so on and so forth. And he came on and he explained how he saw this kid being developed. And then that gave me an idea. I'm like, okay, now I'm in his head and I can see what he sees in him. And I can go ahead and now put those traits, I can watch those traits on tape and I can see their vision for how they're going to utilize them. And I appreciate that. I appreciate it that he's got the fortitude or the honesty to go ahead and just explain, because this is not, science. It's not brain surgery. It's just drafting players and it's a philosophy. So that I appreciated. I think when he wants to make a statement, he makes a statement. And I think that statement for the offensive line group that, when he got in there and they kind of broke down their tape from last year, basically drafting, was it 4 or 5 offensive linemen altogether? I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. It says, hey, you guys aren't any good. You guys aren't any good. And I'm bringing in some competition, right? Like I said earlier, hopefully maybe they'll call get some more free agents. But I think Zachary Thomas and I think the Braxton Jones are guys that could go out and they could probably compete maybe for that left tackle position. We'll see what happens there. The Carter kid, I'm really excited about. I think he could probably compete at guard, but he'll probably be more of a backup guy, a depth guy initially. The only question I have right now, guys, is honestly, like we had yesterday, was the tackle, right? The 3 technique. Is it Larry Ogunjobi? Is he going to be able to bring him in? Could that be a fixer? Because I noticed once he traded down in the 5th round a couple of times, some of the players that we had a target, Neil, you and I, like Thomas Booker from Stanford, the 3 technique was gone.
Kicking at 150 out when we traded out.
Yeah, and I think it was let's go. The tackle from North Dakota was gone as well. So now I think they came back and kind of bounced back in terms of tackle position, but the receiver position, right? So receiver and D tackle is what I'm looking for here. Is how are they going to go ahead and fulfill that that position and bring more bodies in? Actual players that can actually help Justin Fields compete next year, right? So he talked about this is going to be an ongoing process, that they're going to look at undrafted free agents. They're going to look at guys that get cut. They're going to go look at the final 53. Once those cuts are made, they're going to continue to try and bring in players, which is what all you can hope for. Because I'm not looking at the free agent list, and really there's nothing out there in terms of veteran free agents that you really want to jump on right now. I mean, guys like Emmanuel Sanders, Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, Will Fuller, those are the names out there right now, the prominent names in terms of veteran free agents. So curious to see how he attacks that position now post-draft. And again, that interior defensive tackle position, like again, that's not, maybe he just ignored it because he knows that, you know, Larry Ogunjobi is going to be able to get fully healthy where he can pass a physical, and then they can, you know, go back and take a look at his contract and then bring him on board. That would be sensational if they could do that. So
amazing.
Yeah. So those are my concerns right now is receiver and interior defensive tackle. But I think Ryan Poles does a good job of you know, expressing himself and telling the listener, the viewers, the fans in terms of what he's thinking in his process.
Transparency is so refreshing.
Mhm.
After spending the past, you know, handful of years of just listening to coach speak and talking in circles and everything else, like he actually, you know, has you know, logical thought and expresses stuff and gives some explanation and some rationale and reasoning and all those different types of things that you love about, you know, people that, you know, have a functioning brain and can articulate themselves. I mean, it's great listening to him talk. You know, one of the things that I loved about you know, what he brought out was something I actually haven't heard before, is grade the flashes, when he was talking specifically about Dominique Robinson. Like, because, you know, a lot of these times, you know, these guys are raw, and the flashes a lot of times do give you an insight into what the ceiling could be. And with a guy like, you know, Dominique Robinson, who's been playing the position for 3 seconds, you know, he's got a little bit of ways to go to get to an elite level. You know, what does he look like when he flashes elite? That's what we could possibly get him to. And so that's the interesting thing. But, you know, I do love that he includes his entire staff into this process, not only just from the standpoint of, hey, you go on the road, fix your schedule for the Southeast region, the Western regional scout, make sure you cross-ref this guy, you know, in the Northwest, and, you know, all these different like types of things, the guys with their typical, you know, responsibilities and job descriptions. He includes these guys in on draft day. Said, I want you to give me the 3 guys you're the most convicted about, and we're going to place a star on those 3 guys. And he said, I think he said like 9 of the 11 guys. I don't know if I caught that right. But he said like most of the guys, I thought it was 9 of 11 guys that they got had one of those convicted stars next to their names. And it sounds like he also let those guys go down to the media and talk about the players that they took that they were convicted about. I was looking at Chris Emma's, you know, Twitter, and I retweeted a couple of things that he put up there, and he had quotes from scouts. Which last year, when I tried to get quotes from, you know, the guys that I knew within the 4 walls, those guys said the organization would not appreciate them speaking on behalf of the team, which I thought was kind of effed up a little bit, because they're part of this process. They should at least have a little bit of you know, flexibility to, you know, get their voice out about how they feel about, you know, the guys that they drafted. But they were so shackled in underneath this oppressive organization that just was so robotic and mechanic that you couldn't ever get, you know, some just, you know, refreshingly honest, transparent opinions on stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really cool. And I mean, just really the whole thing, though, it sounds like, you know, again, like I talked about beforehand, going into this whole process, you know, Ryan Poles has a plan, and he has instilled this plan throughout his staff. The entire staff has a plan. And when, you know, something doesn't fall right, he has a contingency. And when things aren't perfect, he traded back, and he got back, you know, 8 picks, or it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, you know, we got 8 picks on a day when we're supposed to have 3. He added 5 picks, you know, guys that are either going to be, you know, role players or difference makers, or guys that are going to make the roster and you know, be kind of like niche players, you know, whatever case it may be. Some guys that, you know, we both are really excited about, and I couldn't be any happier that we have a GM that actually things seem to make sense, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. Things seem to make sense when you see things play out. It's not just it doesn't feel helter skelter, right? Which is kind of how I felt the past few years under Poles, or under Pace.
It definitely is refreshing to go through this process with them. The transparency, as you guys said, is refreshing, and frankly, I'm not at all upset with the results. I don't know a lot of these players, but I am convinced with the process that Poles has put in place. And I was having a discussion with some people in the chat, and Stephen Nagishi was saying, well, it seems like if he's following his board, then he's being inflexible. Well, that's a good thing. You know, why are you going to choose someone on your board who you might have ranked at 200 when the guy you ranked at 150 is there, even though the guy at 200 is a position of need. You're doing a disservice to the team, and the fact that he was disciplined with that is huge. Ryan Pace would talk about being disciplined, but you got the sense that he wasn't, and so I'm encouraged by what I heard. Guys,
one more thing in terms of grading the flashes. It's another thing, Velus Jones is going to get a lot of heat, or that pick is going to get a lot of heat. But you grade the kid's flashes. They're pretty damn good. So it's not just a returner. I don't want to hear, oh, he's 25 years old and just a returner. No, he's not. He's 25 years old. That's fine, but he's not just a returner. This kid is going to be used, and as Paul stated yesterday, he's going to be used in multiple ways. He's going to be used. I don't want to call him Deebo Samuel, but like Deebo Samuel, means he's going to get that ball from the bat in the backfield. He's going to get slip screens, bubble screens. He's going to be running go routes. They're going to utilize him as a weapon, not just as strictly as a receiver. So just keep that in mind as well.
Very good. All right. Is it okay if we move on to round 7, the 254th pick? Elijah Hicks, your guy. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah. Although, do you have that video that just got shared out?
Yep.
With his response to getting drafted by the Bears?
I believe I do.
I want a piece of this energy. I can't quite hear it.
Yeah, we can't hear it, Aldo.
Oh, let me re-cue it, and why don't you go ahead and start with your evaluation of him, and then I'll try to correct the audio issue.
Well, the thing about Elijah Hicks is again, I didn't get that far down the list, especially at a position that I thought they were going to be one and done at. But Elijah Hicks from California seems like a kid with a lot of leadership, and he's a grown man. Let's just go ahead and say that. I'm gonna pull up. Hang on, I just accidentally clicked out of it. Elijah Hicks out of California, 5'107", so basically 5'11", 198 pounds. Has a 4.53 40 at his combine. Didn't do any of the other testing, but he's a good-looking, rock-solid kid. The thing I like most about him is that he created, when out there at California, during the pandemic, he created this like philanthropy fund to help fellow students. He said he raised more than $60,000 through it's called the Intercept Poverty Foundation to help families feed their school-age children during the early stages of COVID-19 pandemic, focusing on social efforts for his fellow Cal students then as well. He's a fifth-year senior kid. He said that it says this is a new grant program that intended to provide $500 to $700 for students to help them overcome financial roadblocks at a time when really everything was kind of upended, and a lot of us didn't know really where our next meal was going to come from. I was unemployed at the time. Luckily, I had enough saved up. Not that I had a lot, but I had enough saved up to be able to float myself for a few months. But quotes from him, he says those are things that I know affect people from studying. So I just wanted to be able to create this and find a way to help students to be able to focus on school and not be so worried about how they're going to get their next meal or how they're going to get their laptop fixed. He said, I'm fortunate enough to have a scholarship, but even with what I know, how tough college could be, it's something that's very close to me, and I want to do what I can to bring attention to the issue of poverty on campuses and do my best to let people know so we can all chip in and help. He said he grew up in Long Beach, California, has 11 siblings. Some attended college, some didn't. Some were forced to drop out in order to find work, support themselves and the family. He says, being here at Cal, you're going to a class of people who go to bed not eating anything or just eating top ramen. I relate to that struggle because those are the things I had growing up. I'll be honest with you guys, when I was in college too, they were nice. I'm going to bed. My dinner was ramen and hot dogs, right? I mean, it was, it's kind of slim pickings in college sometimes when you're just trying to make ends meet. Especially my last year when I'm just really sort of on the bottom end of the totem pole when I was at Ball State getting my career started, making literally peanuts. And I'm having to save literal pennies just to make sure that I can afford food to eat the next week. Taking boxes of food home from the training table just so that I have stockpile of food in my place. I don't have to spend too much money here and there. But that tells you that kid has a lot of shit to him, man. he's got some leadership. He's got like some like, you know, bigger world views on things. I don't know how he is as a player. I've not watched nearly enough film on him to be able to evaluate that. And I don't really have any scouting reports from anywhere that I've found recently since he got picked that would be able to give me at least a little bit of an inkling. But from a leadership standpoint, I like what I see, man. And that video, if although you can get that queued up, that kid has energy. That kid is amped up. He's excited. He was doing, you know, push-ups on his back deck. I kind of love the kid already, man. He's my spirit animal right now.
I think I do have it. Tell me if you can't hear it.
What's the deal, Bear fans? Elijah Hicks, safety of Cal. Already been a Bear. I'm a Bear again. I'm so turned up. I'm going to show up and show out, do everything I need to do, contribute, safety, defense, special teams. I'm turned. Just know I'm coming with that energy. I'm really like that.
You gotta
bottle that up and
like,
put it in my fridge. I'll drink it daily.
Oops. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I haven't dug into his tape either because I mean, after yesterday, I thought, oh, they're probably done with in terms of, you know, looking for safety. So I really didn't do much more work on safety. So, but yeah, I mean, from you know, he's a guy corner / safety. You know, size is 5'11". You know, he could be a guy that could probably play, and maybe like that, you know, nickel back position where he's like a hybrid safeties, hybrid, you know, cornerback. So. It'll be interesting. I'm going to do some more digging on his tape, you know, this next couple of days, and by Thursday I'll hopefully give you some more things so you can look at. But yeah, I mean, you just like the energy. You like the fact that he forced 4 fumbles last year. So he had 4 forced fumbles last year. So that tells me that the guy that can get after the football, he can get it out and make some plays. Had 3 interceptions. You see him there coming off the edge there as a blitzer there. So he's got the good speed. So that kid from a kid I had no idea about, you know, just kind of seeing some of those tapes and some of the highlights and some more things he could do. You know, it's a guy that intrigues me, right? So, you know, worst case scenario, he probably stays on as a special teams gunner or something like that. But I think they have a feeling that they've envisioned a role for this kid. And it might be just like that, like I said, that hybrid kind of nickel back where he's, you know, maybe covering the slot, where maybe he's being a blitzer. You know, maybe he's a guy that you know, be an extra run defender in the box. So it definitely looks like the kid loves to, you know, has range. The kid loves physicality. Like he's physical, you know, in terms of coming down and run support. So we'll see what we can muster up here in terms of some film study with him, and we'll have something more for you on Thursday. But just as a 7th round pick, a guy that can come in and probably make your team as a you know, a gunner in terms of special teams. Again, so you know that safety position was something that you know, you guys had highlighted before. It was something that was really lacking back. That room was really lacking back there. So I think with the addition of Hicks and addition of Brisker yesterday, obviously now you have Eddie Jackson. I think this more puts Eddie Jackson on notice. I thought the addition of Brisker was that. I think this kid brings some of that energy and some of all that stuff. So I think this I'd like Poles was saying right now in that press conference, the Kareem rises to the top. You add competition, you add depth. Next thing you know, the guys that are sitting there, you know, counting their Bitcoin or their investments. Now we're gonna see, oh, this kid's coming here and he's gonna compete for my job. Next thing you know, that elevates their level of play. So yeah, I mean, for a 7th round pick, I think that's not bad. Now I would have wanted a receiver. Sure, I wanted a receiver, but obviously these guys just didn't have enough, you know, good tape or just the grades that they justify to go ahead and not pick a receiver unless they have a plan post draft to you know, help, you know, lift that, you know, the talent in that room. So we'll see what goes on there. But yeah, I mean, other than the fact that I was disappointed and wasn't a receiver, everything I've seen so far from this kid has been positive.
Sheldon apparently has a thorough evaluation of Elijah Hicks. He had nothing but stuff to say during the entire time we're talking about Elijah Hicks. He wouldn't shut up. So
who? Oh, Sheldon. Oh.
Yeah, Bears barroom assistant, college scout Sheldon the Cat. He would not shut up during the entire time we're talking about Elijah Hicks. He apparently has watched a lot of film on him.
Cool, excellent. All right, let's talk about the punter they got with their final pick. His name is Trestan Gill. And I don't know about this guy. This seemed to be a little bit of a reach to me. One of the things that I read is that he has been a kickoff specialist too, so he would provide that. But I don't know if he's got the leg strength, according to some of the reports that I read. But then I look at some of the tape, and you know, just take a look at this punt here that he issues. Somebody was able to get their hands on the all-22. but he's here. He's definitely shows some decent punt strength.
Well, yeah, he's 6'4", 220. So that's first. That's got to be one of the biggest punters I've seen.
Yeah, it's huge.
So he shouldn't be
6'3", 6'3",
Pat
and 4.
O'Donnell. Pat O'Donnell was huge too, right?
I don't know if he's as big as this kid at 220. Interesting to see, but yeah, I mean, I had a feeling they were gonna. And once they started, accumulating picks, I had a feeling they were gonna go get a punter. I was hoping like Neil was to get Matt Ariza from San Diego State, but they just didn't didn't do that. So, but yeah, I mean, this is the kid. I honestly have guys I've not graded or watched any punting tapes, so I would have no idea what to tell you in terms of this kid. But other than the fact that I saw his measurables, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty big punter. So you would think he'd have a decent size, a decent leg in terms of power and all that stuff. So the only thing is obviously the punter is going to have to be a holder now for Cairo Santos. So interesting to see if he's
go normal speed on that. I'm sorry, Danny. Go normal speed on that.
Yeah, because I was actually slowing it up because one of the complaints on him is that extra step he takes. You could see it right here. Look at that. He took 4 steps to get that punt off, and that's not good.
I was just trying to get op time and hang time on him.
Gotcha. Well, another one coming up. Let's see if he also takes 4 steps.
Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
It's all good, dude. I don't have much on the punters.
All righty. We'll be keeping an eye on him. I mean, obviously, it doesn't mean that he's going to be the next punter of the team. It just means that he's some competition at camp, but they did bypass some other guys who, at least according to you guys and others that I've heard, were better punters. So that is that. Neil, I know you've been keeping track of some undrafted free agents. You want to share some names with us? And then
absolutely.
Danny, jump in anytime.
Let me go ahead and pull this up here. I'm going to refresh this so I have the most recent deal. So we got the linebacker from Buffalo, Gaddafi Wright. Gaddafi, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that, but Gaddafi Wright. Wide receiver out of Utah State, Savon Scarver. We got a tight end out of Cal, Jake Tonges, Tonges, however you pronounce that. I like this one. Linebacker out of Wisconsin, Jack Sanborn was a guy that stood out during the East-West Shrine Game event. He's got some explosiveness to him, sideline to sideline type of stuff. I think he clocked on the GPS tracking. He clocked. He was 18.12 miles per hour. He ran 4.53, I think. It was 4.73. But his max acceleration yards per second was 6.48, which is really good for that position that he plays, the size that he is. So that's an interesting one. Missouri cornerback Ali Green, which I really like. That was a kid I scouted, was actually in my top 20 corners to be drafted. This kid has great size, great physicality. He's got some explosiveness to him. Plays with a chip on his shoulder. Another one of these guys that has a lot of rawness to him, sort of in the way of a guy like the kid out of UTSA, Zion McCollum, and that kid out of Sam Houston State. Two guys there that have a lot of rawness to them, but have traits. This kid has some size, some length. And like I said, he's got that physicality and mean streak and nasty about him. The way that he plays, I like that one a lot. Mississippi DB Jalen Jones, who I probably should know more about than I do. I know that name, but I can't quite put the face to the name and the stats to the player.
Mm-hmm.
But that's who we have so far in terms of our UDFAs. We got 6 guys, got 2 linebackers, a wide receiver, 2 DBs, and tight end.
Who was the wide receiver?
The kid from Utah State, Savon Scarver.
No, unfortunately, it's the other kid from Utah State. I wanted Devin Tompkins, but I haven't seen him sign yet. I also saw something where they had signed Master Teague from the former Ohio State running back as well. I'm not sure if that's official. That's why I thought I saw something on Twitter, but. Anyway, all those guys other than Sanhorn, I haven't really dove into many of those old players. So I'll take your word for it, Neil, in terms of the kid Green from Missouri, the cornerback. But yeah, I mean, I was hoping they'd bring in some more competition in terms of the receiver room. I see some receivers out there that weren't. Justin Ross is a guy from Clemson. Like I said, I understand why he didn't get drafted. It's probably that medical red flag, but hopefully they can get in there and kind of sign that kid. And like I said, I talked about this kid, Devin Tompkins, small guy, 5'7", but plays plays strong, plays a guy that can go up and make plays downfield from Utah State. So we'll see what else they finish up here in terms of wrapping up. Obviously, Poles was saying that they were still working on it as they were meeting with the media. So not official yet, but nothing really sticks out to me in terms of the names that they've that been reported so far.
So the kids that Missouri brought in as grad transfers last year from Tulsa, that was a Caleb Evans who got drafted. I can't remember to who.
Vikings got it.
Vikings took him today, and then Allie Green was the other kid. Those two guys were the bookend corners down in Tulsa. They transferred to Missouri together. Allie Green, at his, I think this was a pro day measurement. He was a 6'0", 205, 203, 9'4", 8 hands, 32 arms. 7'5", 78 on the wingspan. Have excellent size in AA, swivels well, physical at the point of attack and press and field of play. Loves contact. Best game was against Texas A&M. He jumped off the screen to me against Texas A&M. Covered well, made plays on the ball. In the other games, wasn't as productive. Struggled a bit in coverage, but also wasn't tested a ton. Definitely a developmental guy, but in terms of grading guys on flashes, you like the ceiling that this kid has.
This guy, Sevan Scarver, I found the clip. Apparently, he's proficient at kickoff returns. He had a couple of kickoff returns this past season for touchdowns. Let me play one of them for you. It's 100-yard. Whoops, wrong one. Stop sharing. Go over here and do it this way instead. There it is. So, it appears they've got a lot of competition for these kickoff roles, special teams roles.
This kid's got seven return kickoff return touchdowns in his career.
In his college career, wow.
Yeah. So he's up there in terms of as a returner. So definitely intriguing there.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of
guys. Outside of Devin Hester, our special teams return game has been absolutely putrid throughout my entire life. So I'm glad we're placing emphasis on this.
Patterson led the league in returns one season before he went to Atlanta Falcons and had a great all-around season, returns, offense, and everything. But outside of Patterson and Hester, you're absolutely right.
This guy's not done much in terms of their extra receiving. All of last year, I only had 6 receptions for 42 yards. So. This guy's brought in for his return ability. So hopefully he can get his buddy Devin Tompkins to come here as well and sign, because I think that kid would be a nice little guy to get. Signed Chase Allen apparently from Iowa State. That's a solid pickup there.
Yeah, it is a solid pickup.
Yeah.
So we've got work to do for our next show on Thursday, guys. I want to let people, before I go to you for last words, I want to let people know that tomorrow we've got our coverage starts very early in the morning at 9 a.m. Greg Gabriel and myself will review the day 3 picks, and he's also going to preview what's ahead for the Chicago Bears, what typically teams are doing immediately after the draft, what's the scouting department doing. It's going to be interesting to see if some of these scouts are maintained. Typically, when a general manager is hired, he will use the scouting team that was in place. And then after the draft, there are some moves done. So Greg will talk a little bit about that and a number of other things. At 6:30, it's the AA team. Stephen Nagishi and Ken Fang will talk to Mark Fanaru Wada of ESPN and Shane Hallam of Draft Countdown. So there's going to be a lot of Bears talk. And then some baseball action, the Southburg Sitman. I've been so busy with the draft, I haven't checked in on my White Sox or what the Cubs are. I haven't checked in on anything in the outside world. So it'll be good to get back to some kind of normalcy. It's been a lot of fun and a lot of fun doing it with you two guys. Neil, why don't you share some last thoughts, and then we'll end this episode of Draft on Tap.
Yeah, amped up for next Thursday's show. We got a couple guests that'll be on. We'll share that information this week when we promo the show. Hopefully, we can find a couple others, to join in on the fun. But outside of that, what we saw the past couple of days, I think this team got better, and there's nothing to hang our head about. Some people think that the draft just didn't go well because their particular players that they liked, or positions that they thought were perceptively more of a need than others, didn't get picked, or things of those nature. We got 11 guys coming in, and I think there's positivity to finding all 11 of these guys, especially the 3 guys that we got yesterday. in Gordon Brisker and Jones. I'm really amped up about those three guys. I think especially our secondary, improved dramatically over the past 24 hours, and we'll see the fruits of that, coming this fall. But again, as always, guys, thanks for coming in and commenting in the thing. Make sure you like the podcast here. Share it out with your friends. Let's get this show growing even more exponentially than it already is, man. This is a great thing that we're all doing here. I have a hell of a lot of fun doing it. I know you have a lot of fun doing it, Danny. Aldo, you're the maestro. You're just kicking around back there and enjoying the show, right? I mean, this is
that's all I'm doing, man.
This is good times for you, man. The thing about it is, guys, this is all pet project stuff for us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all taking time out of our outside of our work schedules to do all this kind of stuff, and we put a lot of effort into it. It's passionate. So again, thanks for being fans of it. Thanks for coming in and commenting. Thanks for liking it, sharing it, all those different types of things. The last thing I will say before I leave is I am going to treat my significant other tonight to dinner for putting up with my shit for the past month. If there's any place you guys are convicted about in the city of Chicago, I want you to DM it to me or tag me on Twitter or whatever at me, and let me know which place you think I should go to.
How about me and Aldo? We have to put up with your shit too. Any froze?
That's awesome.
Talk about timing.
Well, while he comes back, I do have one more question. Swanky provides this one. He wants to know, on a side note, how are we all feeling about Justin Fields going into year 2? Danny, your most honest and brutal assessment.
Well, in terms of the player himself, I feel great about him. I just wish he has more help on offense, and hopefully with these picks in the offensive line, one or two of them becomes full-time starters on the offensive line. Hopefully they show up at left tackle. I've been adamant about receiver help, so hopefully they could bring in a receiver or two that can go ahead and help him there as well. But I just feel like this kid is just going to start moving on up here. So last year was a rough year in terms of the staff and some of the schemes and some of the positions he was put in. But through all that, we still saw the glimpses, right? We talked about Ryan Poles talking about the flashes, and the flashes were magnificent, right? That game against Pittsburgh, some of those runs against the 49ers, some of the plays he made, the throws down the field versus Detroit, so this is a kid that he's flashed, right? Now we just got to get him in the right system, get him a supporting cast with offensive line, receivers, and all that stuff. And I think that's just going to kind of just continue his growth, and hopefully have a play caller that's going to be sticking around here for more than just a year. And now that kind of develop into his offense, and sure enough, we'll all see him developing right before our eyes and on Sundays on the football field. So I have high hopes for Justin Fields. That's why I'm so adamant the last couple of days about offensive line, receiver, help this kid, protect them, and give them weapons. And I thought they did a solid job today in getting some potential guys that can come in and, like I said, compete for starting jobs and maybe be starters. I have still a need there for receiver. So I need to have at least one or maybe two more receivers here, whether those are veterans or those are going to be via trades, free agents, whatnot. But you got to add some more talent to that receiver room.
Indeed. Neil, while we were waiting for you, we accepted a question from Swanky, and he just wanted our general thoughts about Justin Fields headed into year 2. Can you share a thought or two?
Well, it seems like he's tinkered with his throwing motion in the offseason. He's worked on getting quicker and faster, and with less elongated motion and more snap off the ball. Throwing vertically, executing this offense. You hope that, like golfers, when they reinvent their swing in the offseason. We saw that one year where Tiger Woods was just absolutely garbage because he reinvented his swing and couldn't win, a single event. You hope that a kid like Justin Fields, who's been throwing basically the same way his entire life, all of a sudden at the age of 22 or whatever he is right now, 21, 22 years old, that he doesn't all of a sudden, kind of fall apart a little bit in terms of his timing. Getting the ball out and trying to make things happen out there offensively. Outside of that, I feel like from what it sounds like when you hear Eberflus talking, when you hear Poles talking, that Justin Fields is well tuned into what the administration is doing in terms of the personnel, the roster management. We heard Poles say that they sat down and watched film together after taking Velus Jones last night. One of the talking points was they sat down and watched film together, and Velus Jones is one of those guys that Justin Fields earmarked as, if we get a chance to get that guy, I'd love to play with that guy. So I love the fact that they're bringing him into the decision making just a little bit. Obviously, he doesn't have all the input. No quarterback should. This should be specifically a head coach, GM, type of deal. But they are making him feel important and part of the decision making process, and I think that is in some way important to the psyche of the team leader, right? The guy in the locker room that is sort of the guy that rallies the troops. So I have a lot of hope, a lot of faith in this season. We'll see what kind of reports we get back. We got a couple people coming on next week that can talk to us about the minicamp, pre-draft minicamp. And we'll have more opinions coming in from people that we know that will be around for OTAs, later on. Is it May 1st yet? Later on next month. And we'll see what happens. There's a lot of learning to be done in terms of offensive scheme with Getsy coming in. The thing I love about Luke Getsy is that he is a very not mechanical. That's not the word that I want to say. He's methodical. He's very methodical in the way that he teaches, the way he goes about his business, the way that he brings quarterbacks underneath him, and instills the philosophy within them. And so it sounds like really overall, if you look at things from a 30,000-foot bird's eye view, it sounds like everything has gotten a lot easier, across the board with this new coaching staff and in terms of philosophy and scheme and everything else. So that's definitely going to help this team play on the whole looser and freer and a lot more confident. And I have a lot of hope and confidence moving forward that the right moves have been made. We'll see what happens during the offseason, though. We got OTAs coming up next month. I'll share out the schedule later on after I get off this call, exactly what we're looking at moving forward in terms of team activities. And then August is going to be here before we know it. It's going to be like one of those things where we're going to go to sleep overnight and we're going to wake up and we're going to be in preseason camp, and week one's going to be just a couple days away. So man, it's coming quick. Draft. I'm going to be honest with you. The draft absolutely snuck up on me, kind of like Christmas did this past year. Everything just kind of snuck up on me over the past few months.
Well, I got to let people know that one of our big shows coming up is going to be on Thursday, May 12th. That's when the NFL releases the schedule. We'll get to see where the Bears are going to play and when they're going to play. So can't wait for that day. John Buffone is going to host that special. We'll have a lot of barroom people on to share their thoughts on the schedule. It's going to be a party on Thursday, May 12th. So with that, I'm going to turn off the lights on this one. Thanks everyone who joined us live. Really appreciate it. The show will be housed here on YouTube. If you want to retweet it out to people or copy and paste the URL and put it on any of your other social media channels, that would be very appreciated. Guys, thanks very much, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you.